Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily News. I'm Nicholas Richardson. Europe has been swamped by a wave of illegal migration for nearly 10 years. Brussels is trying to forcefully impose mandatory quotas of illegal migrants on individual countries. These quotas were effectively blocked by the Law and Justice government. However, when Donald Tusk came to power, the European Union structures adopted the Migration Pact, whose unilateral termination was announced by Karol Nawrocki, the civic candidate for president of Poland.
Illegal migrants are continually storming the old continent. European elites have found what they believe is the golden solution to this problem, a migration pact, under which European Union member states are obliged to take in illegal migrants. Karol Nawrocki, a citizen's candidate for president of Poland, disagrees with this solution. The Migration Pact must be unilaterally terminated. As a citizen's candidate for president of Poland, as a future president of Poland, I guarantee you that I am in favor of unilaterally terminating the Migration Pact. A completely different view on the subject is held by Donald Tusk. His government theoretically voted against the pact, but the prime minister himself praised the EU solution. Poland will be a beneficiary of the Migration Pact. However, contrary to Prime Minister Tusk's boastful announcements, Poland is not a beneficiary. Taking in illegal immigrants, and I don't mean those who are still coming into the EU, but especially those who have been in France or Germany for several years and who are unwelcome there. They will be relocated to countries such as Poland. The media have written about cases where German police dropped off groups of illegal migrants in Poland. At the same time, so-called integration centers for foreign arrivals are being prepared in Poland, and yet the Prime Minister promised in the exposé. Truly, no one will fool me in the European Union. But migration is not just a Western European problem. Moscow's Operation Śluza, aimed at attacking the Polish border with Belarus, continues. Although the intensity of the assaults has weakened, they continue to occur. On December 17th alone, 10 such incidents were reported. Although now the ruling government is creating itself as defenders of the border, for years they have insulted Polish soldiers, which fits in with Putin's propaganda. This is a pack of dogs that has surrounded poor and weak people. This is not how soldiers act. Simply trash. These are poor people who are looking for their place on earth, and there is no need to make such disgusting and grim propaganda. Let these people into Poland at last. Who they are will be determined later. What do you have the services for? And now, as if nothing ever happened, the power camp argues that it is in favor of a tough policy on the border. However, they haven't apologized yet to the soldiers and border guards for these shameful words. It is time to apologize to the Polish soldiers and the Polish officers for all that you said in the summer of 2021. It is evident that you can learn from the successes of your predecessors, and it is also worth recognizing that it is time to apologize to the Polish soldiers and the Polish officers too. Despite the change in rhetoric, the power camp has not changed its attitude towards soldiers. In April, the services handcuffed and detained uniformed soldiers who used fire during an attack by illegal migrants. I believe in Polish soldiers. I believe in their best performance. But this matter must also be concluded, and everything must be transparently presented. A few days later, a tragedy occurred. Illegal migrants murdered Polish soldier Mateusz Sitek. 6 months have passed since the crime. Now public opinion has been circulated with shocking information, as the Służby w Akcji portal determined, based on an article by Money.pl. The family of the murdered soldier was to receive only 36,000 zł gross in compensation. The information has been denied by the Polish army, but it is unclear how much compensation the family received. This information, in response to untrue information regarding compensation for the death of our colleague, late Sergeant Mateusz, we unequivocally denounce it. Out of respect for the family, we do not provide detailed amounts, although they are much higher as per the law. Let's read. However, it is known what compensation an illegal migrant from Ethiopia received from the Polish state. The man, for being placed in guarded centers for foreigners in Poland for 179 days, received 40,000 50,000 zloty. He claimed he was held against his will, and soldiers guarding the border are being held accountable. Those who serve here along these 180 kilometers of the Polish border, they are heroes. They are heroes. They are soldiers and officers who ought to be treated like soldiers on a mission instead of being prosecuted through the Polish prosecutor's office. Donald Tusk's camp juggles the topic of illegal migration, depending on what trend dominates the public space. So let's not look at the words, but at the deeds, which have been coinciding with Berlin's policies for years.
Voters have voted and electors have approved. Donald Trump is officially the winner of the United States presidential election. The US electoral system, in addition to the votes of citizens, also requires confirmation by the Electoral College, which has just done that. The Republican is already making key decisions and preparing for the inauguration of his second presidency. 2 votes, but there could only be one winner. First, Donald Trump was chosen by the American people. Now their choice was confirmed by the Electoral College. It's just a formality, but in the American electoral system it is of great importance because it officially opens a way for Trump to take power.
Donald Trump won the presidential election on November 5th, but he's not president yet. First, there are a few more steps that need to be taken due to the United States' unusual system for electing a president, known as the Electoral College.
The Republican candidate received as many as 312 Electoral College votes, outclassing his rival Kamala Harris of the Democratic Party. Trump will soon lead the world's greatest superpower again, but important decisions are already being made.
Final outcome is going to be in the region. You know, nobody knows who really the final. I believe it's Turkey, and I think Turkey is very smart. He's a very smart guy, and he's very tough. But Turkey did an unfriendly takeover without a lot of lives being lost.
Preparations are also underway for the inauguration of Trump's presidency, which is just over a month away on the 20th of January. Prime Minister Donald Tusk didn't get an invitation, and it's unclear whether he will. Struggling for power, he held unfounded accusations in Donald Trump's direction. Trump lied a dozen times a day. He actually turned out to be a Russian agent, Putin's man, and that for 4 years was as clear as day. The question was not about former Minister Błaszczak's statements, but about your statements during this pre-election meeting about the fact that Donald Trump may have ties, even agent ties, with Moscow. No, I did not make that kind of suggestion. Trump and his dependence on Russian services today is no longer subject to discussion. This is not my assumption. How, after such words and such gestures, Tusk imagines working with Donald Trump, soon to be the leader of Poland's biggest ally, who is the guarantor of the security of us all. Or the Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski, who went to great lengths to make these posts disappear from the internet. Trump, Putin's man in the White House. For proto-fascists like Trump or Kaczynski, elections or verdicts are only important when they go their way. They tried to downplay them or even to prove to the Poles that such a thing did not take place, that these words were not said. All these evasions mean that these comments from a few months or a few years ago will not serve them well in their relations with the United States. But what's worse, they won't serve Poland well. A nasty mistake, especially in the case of Tusk. His tweets were dangerous for us at the time, and not to mention those thoughtless gestures towards Trump when Tusk was president of the European Council. So let them learn. You don't have to look far. President Andrzej Duda has a unique relationship with Donald Trump. This is the latest meeting between the leaders during the reopening of Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. The Polish president also visited Trump Tower in New York during the US election campaign. I, to this day, remember the meeting between the two presidents in Washington in 2019, where, in a kind of unique way, Andrzej Duda was treated by the president at the time, Donald Trump. Then Andrzej Duda and his wife were greeted with the greatest honors. After the Polish presidential election, good relations with Donald Trump may be maintained or lost. Billions of dollars. That's how much the business of one of the world's most powerful drug barons was worth. In addition to production and distribution, he was also the president of the country. After the fall of the Assad regime in Syria, details of his empire are coming to light. One of the key foundations of that power was drug production. None of this would have been possible, however, had it not been for Russia and its share of these profits. Captagon or phenethylene. In the underworld, it's amphetamine for the poor. One pill of poor quality is $2 to $8 apiece. In factories seized in Damascus under government control and protection, billions of tablets were produced annually. They flooded southern Europe and the Middle East. Profits went into Assad's treasury. These containers are full. They put the containers in generators and sent them to Saudi Arabia and other countries. Who arranged for the distribution? Syria's close friends in the north. The Kremlin kept Assad on a leash of dependency. For Putin, Syria was the key to the Middle East. For Russia, this is a huge logistical blow, as it is for Iran. Iran had its corridor to Lebanon through Syria, while in Syria, Putin had his transport route to Africa, where there are diamonds, gold, gas and oil. Also, of course, left business. I'm sure the Russian special services also had their hand in it, just like they had their hand on Afghan heroin in Soviet times. So this is a very dirty game, and we can expect the worst from the Russian secret services. Everyone in Europe knew about Assad's narco business and the Russian patronage. Despite many international actions and attempts to break the drug distribution routes, there was just too much.
Assad was a drug dealer, funding his regime through Captagon and illicit finance. And we said no because he was never, ever going to change. There were those who used to call Assad the Lion of Damascus. Now we see the reality. Assad is the rat of Damascus, fleeing to Moscow with his tail between his legs.
Narco-terrorism is one reason why no one in the West misses Assad. The other is equally overwhelming in its scale. 100,000 or more. These are the estimates of the number of victims buried in mass graves near Damascus. Methods of interrogation, imprisonment and execution were straight out of Moscow's Lubyanka. Brutal methods taken from NKVD manuals.
When trenches were opened that would be quite deep as 15 meters or 15 feet, 5 meters or 15 feet, they would dump the bodies in there and then they would fill the trench even at such a depth that potentially this area could be used later for normal burials where the bodies would only be, say, 2 meters deep.
A cemetery for mass graves, a methodology well known to historians in Poland. Attempts to obliterate traces and eliminate witnesses straight out of the Stalinist terror era. Trucks, large refrigerated trucks, would arrive at the mass grave. The graves were prepared in an organized manner. The truck would arrive, unload what it was carrying, and leave. There were police carts with them, and no one was allowed to get close. Anyone who got close ended up just like those there. However, the road to peace and tranquility for Syrians will certainly be a long one. With the fall of the regime and, above all, the withdrawal of Russian troops from Syria, Nabal's rebels and warlords who are trying to get at least a piece of Assad's empire are beginning to claim their own. This mysterious story has been going on for almost a month, and so far there is no end in sight. More and more drones are being seen in various places in the United States. Despite assurances from the authorities that there is no reason for panic, or any evidence of a threat to public safety, the origin of the drones is still unknown. Adding to the mystery is the fact that these objects are appearing near critically important facilities, so calls for more decisive action are growing louder.
It has become a real plague. Not a day goes by without terrified residents calling the police, reporting more unidentified flying objects. To date, 5,000 such cases have been reported, of which only 100 have been diverted for further investigation. The president-elect also spoke out on the mysterious objects. Donald Trump accused the government of withholding information. According to him, the authorities have more details than they provide to the American people.
The government knows what is happening. Look, our military knows where they took off from. If it's a garage, they can go right into that garage. They know where it came from and where it went. And for some reason, they don't want to comment. And I think they'd be better off saying what it is.
The situation is so serious that the governor of New York has called on Congress to pass stricter drone laws, and the governor of New Jersey has written a letter to President Joe Biden asking for more federal resources to investigate the phenomenon. At the same time, at a press conference, the politician tried to temper emotions.
Understandably, there's a lot of anxiety out there. I get that. I completely get that. But I want folks to know we are on it. We're on it 24/7, that we've got the most sophisticated systems at long last after a lot of pounding away in New Jersey, that we've got experts who run those systems, and I have confidence that we will get the facts here.
Officials from the White House, the FBI, and the Department of Homeland Security assure that the objects pose no threat, but experts admit they can't explain what's going on in the U.S. skies.
He is spraying the sky again.
We don't really know what's going on. My guess is there are a lot of pranksters and, individual operators who are Americans who are just doing this to see what they can do with their little technology they bought down at some Radio Shack. But we can't rule out the possibility of substantially more concerning kinds of foreign action.
Donald Trump has already announced that because of the drones, he wants to cancel his upcoming trip.
They're very close to Bedminster. I think maybe I won't spend the weekend in Bedminster. I've decided to cancel my trip.
Some people are already talking about real hysteria, where it's easy to mistake drones for planes, helicopters, or even satellites, especially from a distance. However, there are a few tips that can help.
Drones are smaller still, so typically the pitch of the noise that they're creating is often quite high, although it varies. And but the other characteristic of this is that the higher the pitch, the less distance you're going to hear it from.
A quick solution to the mystery of drones is what the little ones are hoping for. They know very well that any such mysterious drone could pose a serious threat to this most important flying object, which is expected to appear in the sky in just 6 days.
That's the news. Thank you for watching, and from me, have a good night and a better tomorrow.